The days that followed were filled with learning. Danny had fixed many things in his life, but he had never fixed anything like Vethra. Her body was a mystery wrapped in scales and living metal, and he had to understand it before he could repair it. He turned his shop into a makeshift medical bay. He pushed aside the tractor parts and the broken farming tools. He set up lights and scanners and every piece of diagnostic equipment he could find or borrow. Molly helped him, bringing food and water to Vethra, keeping notes on everything they discovered, and offering comfort when the old dragon's pain became too much to hide. Vethra was patient with him. She explained what she knew about her own body, which was less than Danny had hoped but more than he had feared. She told him that her kind were created by a species called the Architects, being so old that even their ruins had turned to dust. The Architects had built the Dracaran to be perfect, self-sustaining creatures that could live for thousands of years. But perfection fades. Systems break down. And when the Architects disappeared, they took their knowledge with them. "We have tried to learn," Vethra said one evening as Molly applied cooling gel to a damaged section of her neck. "For millions of years, we have studied ourselves, trying to understand how we work. But the technology is too advanced. It is like asking a child to understand the stars." Danny nodded slowly. He had seen this before, in a much smaller way. Old machines from Earth's early space age sometimes arrived on frontier worlds. They were built with techniques that modern mechanics no longer used, made from materials that no one manufactured anymore. Fixing them required creativity, not just knowledge. "What if we don't try to replicate what the Architects made?" he asked. "What if we just make something new?" Vethra turned her great head to look at him. "I do not understand." Danny stood up and walked around her, pointing at different parts of her body. "Your leg is damaged because the internal mechanisms are worn out. I can't rebuild those mechanisms, but I can build a new leg. Human-made. It won't be as elegant as what you have, but it could work. You want to put human parts inside me?" Vethra asked. "Not exactly inside you," Danny said. "More like alongside you. Your body already combines organic and mechanical parts. I would just be adding more mechanical parts, different ones that I know how to build and maintain." Vethra was quiet for a long time. Danny could see her thinking, processing what he had said. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft. "I would no longer be fully Dracaran," she said. "I would be something new. Something that has never existed before. Is that bad?" Molly asked gently. Vethra considered the question. "I do not know," she admitted. "My people would say it is wrong. They would say I am corrupting myself, becoming less than what I was meant to be. But—" She paused, and something like a smile crossed her ancient face. "I stopped caring what my people thought a long time ago." Danny grinned. "So we're doing this?" "We are doing this," Vethra agreed. The work began in earnest. Danny spent hours studying her damaged leg, measuring it, analyzing how it connected to her nervous system and power supply. He sketched designs for a replacement, a hydraulic limb that would be stronger and simpler than the original. He made lists of the parts he would need, the tools he would require, the challenges he would face. Molly became Vethra's primary caretaker. She learned how to clean the dragon's scales, how to apply medicine to her wounds, how to help her eat and drink. She also learned how to listen. Vethra had centuries of stories inside her, and sometimes she needed to let them out. She told them about worlds she had visited, worlds of crystal forests and singing oceans and cities built in the hearts of stars. She told them about the Great War that had killed most of her kind, a conflict so terrible that even she did not fully understand its causes. She told them about her mate, a dragon named Korath who had died 300 years ago, and her children, who had perished in the war. "I thought I was ready to join them," Vethra said one night, her voice heavy with old grief. "When my body began to fail, I thought it was time. But then I realized something. I do not want to die because I'm supposed to. I want to live because I choose to. Molly reached out and placed her small human hand on Vethra's massive claw. That's the bravest thing I've ever heard, she said. Danny worked late into every night. He salvaged parts from old mining equipment, repurposed components from broken ships, improvised solutions when proper materials were not available. The colonists of Vareth 7 noticed what he was doing. Word spread about the dragon living behind the mechanic's shop, and people began to talk. Some were afraid. Dragons were legends, monsters from old stories, creatures of fire and destruction. They did not understand why Danny would help such a being. Others were curious. They came to the edge of his property and stared at Vethra from a distance, whispering among themselves. But a few understood. An elderly doctor named Ben Hartley appeared at Danny's shop one morning. He was retired, his hands no longer steady enough for surgery, but his mind was still sharp. I heard you're trying to fix a dragon, he said. I don't know much about dragons, but I know about pain management. Maybe I can help. A young engineer named Grace Park showed up the next day. She worked at the colony's power plant, maintaining the fusion reactors that kept everything running. I'm good with electrical systems, she said. If your dragon has any wiring that needs fixing, I'm your girl. Danny welcomed them both. He had not asked for help, but he was grateful for it. This was bigger than him. This was bigger than any one person. Vethra watched the humans gather around her, these small, fragile beings who live such short lives. She had seen many species in her centuries of existence. She had seen empires rise and fall, civilizations flourish and fade. But she had never seen anything quite like this. These humans did not help her because they expected something in return. They did not help her because it was their duty or their tradition. They helped her simply because she needed help, and they could provide it. It was such a small thing, really. Such a simple thing. And yet, in all her years, Vethra had rarely encountered it. You are strange creatures, she told Danny one evening. Yeah, Danny agreed, tightening a bolt on the prototype leg. We get that a lot. Vethra made that sound that might have been a laugh. I think I like it, she said, and somewhere deep inside her ancient chest, in the place where her failing heart still beat, she felt something she had not felt in a very long time. She felt hope. Danny Cole was elbow deep in an old tractor engine when the shadow fell over his shop. It was not like a cloud passing over the sun. It was too big, too solid, and it moved with purpose. He wiped his hands on his work cloth and stepped outside to look up at the sky. What he saw made him freeze. A dragon was descending toward his shop. Not a ship that looked like a dragon. Not a machine built in dragon shape. A real living dragon with scales that caught the afternoon light and wings that spread wider than his entire building. Danny had heard stories about the Dracaran. Everyone in the galaxy had. They were one of the oldest species still alive. Ancient beings whose bodies were part flesh and part living metal. They kept to themselves, lived on worlds no other species could reach, and rarely spoke to younger races like humans. Yet here one was, landing in the dirt lot outside his small repair shop on the frontier. World of Vreth-7. The ground shook when she touched down. Danny could tell she was female by the elegant curve of her horns and the patterns on her scales. He could also tell she was old. Her scales, which should have been bright silver, were dull and gray. Her wings had tears in them. One of her 4 legs dragged behind her, and she moved with obvious pain. She was enormous, easily 30 meters from nose to tail. But she lowered her head slowly until her great golden eye was level with Danny. That eye held centuries of memory. It also held exhaustion. You are the mechanic, she said. Her voice was deep and rich, like distant thunder rolling across mountains. The one who fixes things that others say cannot be fixed. Danny swallowed hard. I fix tractors mostly. Farm equipment. Sometimes old ships. I'm not a tractor, she said. There was no anger in her voice, only a tired humor. But I am old, and I am broken, and I have heard that humans do not turn away those who need help. She told him her name was Vethra. She was 783 years old. In her youth, she had flown between stars and watched civilizations rise and fall. She had fought in wars that humans had never heard of and seen wonders that no longer existed. But now she was dying. Her internal systems were failing. The Dracarin were not purely biological creatures. Millions of years ago, a precursor race had engineered them, blending organic tissue with self-repairing nanometal. They were living machines, and like all machines, they eventually broke down. The knowledge of how to repair them had been lost when their creators vanished. Even the Dracarin themselves had forgotten. Our healers could help me, Vethra said, but they will not. Among my kind, death is seen as a natural transition. To fight against it, to extend life through artificial means, is considered shameful. They told me to accept my fate with dignity. She paused and looked at Danny with that ancient, weary eye. I am not ready to die, she said simply. I have lived for almost 8 centuries, and I thought I had seen everything. But I have not seen enough. I have not done enough. There is still wonder left in this universe, and I want to witness it. Danny did not know what to say. He was a simple man. He had grown up on a farming colony, learned to fix machines because someone had to, and ended up on Vareth 7 because the frontier needed mechanics more than the core worlds did. He had never expected to stand in front of a dragon and hear her ask for help, but he also knew that he could not say no. I don't know anything about Dracarin biology, he admitted. I've never even seen one of your kind before today. I could make things worse instead of better. I understand, Vethra said. But I would rather die trying than die waiting. Will you help me, mechanic? Danny looked at her. He saw the pain in her eyes, the way her body trembled with the effort of staying upright, the hope that she was trying so hard to hide. He thought about his wife, Molly, who always said that kindness was never wasted. He thought about his father, who had taught him that a good mechanic never refused a job just because it was difficult. Yeah, he said finally. I'll help you. Vethra let out a long breath, and something in her posture relaxed. Thank you, she said. I have asked others before you. Other species, other mechanics, other doctors. They all refused. They said it was impossible, or too dangerous, or not worth the effort for an old dragon who would die soon anyway. Well, Danny said, scratching the back of his head. I never did know when to give up on something. He led her around to the large storage yard behind his shop. It was the only space big enough for her to rest. She lowered herself to the ground with a heavy sigh, and Danny could hear the grinding of damaged mechanisms inside her body. It sounded like metal scraping against metal, like gears that no longer fit together properly. He spent the rest of the afternoon just looking at her. He walked around her massive form, examining her scales, her wings, her legs. He asked her questions about how her body worked, and she answered as best she could. Most of the knowledge had been lost, but she remembered some things. She knew that her power core was located in her chest, that her mobility systems ran along her spine, that her self-repair functions had stopped working decades ago, when Molly came home from the colony market. She found her husband sitting on an old crate, staring at a dragon. Danny, she said slowly, why is there a dragon in our yard? Her name is Vethra, Danny said. She needs help. Molly looked at the dragon. The dragon looked back at her with those golden eyes. Then Molly sighed, set down her bags, and walked over to stand beside her husband. Well, she said, I suppose I should make some tea. Do dragons drink tea? Vethra made a sound that might have been a laugh. I have never tried it, she admitted. Then We'll start there, Molly said firmly. You can't fix anything on an empty stomach, and you can't ask for help without accepting some hospitality first. That's just how it works. Danny smiled at his wife. This was why he loved her. She never asked whether something was possible. She only asked what needed to be done, and so it began. A mechanic, his wife, and a dying dragon. None of them knew if they could succeed. None of them knew what the future would bring. But they knew they would try, and sometimes that was enough. Seraphel Prime was the most beautiful planet Danny had ever seen. From orbit, it looked like a jewel hanging in the darkness. The oceans were deep purple, and the land masses glowed with soft light. Great crystal towers rose from the surface, so tall they seemed to touch the clouds. Cities floated in the sky, held up by technology that humans could not begin to understand. This was the heart of the Etheran Empire, the oldest civilization in the galaxy, the homeworld of princes and emperors, and the home that Valith had not seen in almost 3 weeks. She stood beside Danny at the observation window, watching her world grow larger as the horizon's edge approached. Her face was calm, but Danny had learned to read the small signs. The slight tension in her shoulders, the way her patterns of light moved a little faster than usual. She was nervous. It will be fine, Danny said. You do not know my father. No, but I know you. And if you are anything like him, he cannot be that bad. Valith gave him a look that might have been amusement or might have been pity. My father is High Sovereign Kalen Soren, ruler of the Etheran Empire for the past 6,000 cycles. He has conquered worlds, crushed rebellions, and outlived every enemy who ever stood against him. He is proud, cold, and utterly without mercy. Danny nodded slowly. Okay, so maybe it will not be fine. No, it will not. The landing was smooth. A shuttle carried them from the horizon's edge to the surface, setting down on a platform made of white stone that seemed to glow from within. Danny stepped out and felt the wind on his face. It smelled like flowers and something electric, like the air before a storm. A delegation was waiting for them. 20 Etheran guards in gleaming armor. A dozen advisors in flowing robes. And at the front, standing taller than all the rest, was High Sovereign Kalen Soren. He looked like Valith, but older and harder. His silver-blue skin was darker, and the patterns beneath it moved in slow, deliberate waves. His eyes were the same liquid gold as his daughter's, but there was no warmth in them. Only cold calculation, Valith. His voice was deep and carried across the platform like thunder. My daughter returns. Valith stepped forward and bowed her head. Father, I am grateful for your welcome. Welcome? Kalen's eyes moved from Valith to Danny, then to the other humans standing behind him. Captain Bennett, Sophie Grant, and a small honor guard from the horizon's edge. You returned from death in the company of humans. You expect me to welcome this? These humans saved my life, Father, so I have been told. Kalen walked closer, his guards moving with him like shadows. He stopped in front of Danny and looked down at him with obvious distaste. You are the one. The human who gave his blood to my daughter. Danny met his gaze without flinching. Yes, High Sovereign. Do you understand what you have done? I saved a dying woman. That is all. Kalen's lip curled. That is not all. You have contaminated royal blood with your primitive essence. You have bound my daughter to you through the Velither, a sacred bond that should never exist between an Etheran and a lesser species. You have created a scandal that will echo through the Empire for generations. Father, Valith said quietly. Silence. Kalen did not look at her. His eyes stayed on Danny. Tell me, human, what do you want? Wealth? Power? A place in our empire? Name your price for releasing my daughter from this shameful bond. Danny felt anger rise in his chest, but he kept his voice steady. I do not want anything. I did not save Valeth for a reward, and she is not mine to release. The bond is hers, not mine." Callan's eyes narrowed. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then the High Sovereign turned to his daughter. "Very well. If this human will not act with reason, then you must. Renounce the Valether. Return to the palace and resume your duties. We will speak no more of this shameful incident. I cannot." "Cannot? Or will not?" Valeth raised her head and met her father's gaze. "Will not. The Valether is sacred. To renounce it would dishonor everything our people believe. I will not bring such shame upon our house, not even for you." The advisors murmured among themselves. The guards shifted uncomfortably. Callan's face was like stone. "Then you leave me no choice." His voice was ice. "If you will not renounce this bond, then you are no longer welcome in this court. You are stripped of your title, your privileges, and your place in the royal family. You are exiled from Seraphel Prime until you come to your senses and return to your proper duty." "Father," Valeth's voice cracked, just for a moment. "You have made your choice. Now live with it." Callan turned his back on her. "Take your human and go. You are no longer my daughter." The advisors and guards followed him as he walked away. In moments, the platform was empty except for the humans and Valeth. Danny reached out and touched her arm. "Valeth, I am sorry. I never meant for this to happen. If you want to go after him, to renounce the bond, I will understand." Valeth turned to face him. Her eyes were bright with tears she refused to let fall. "My father has ruled this empire for 6,000 cycles. He has won every battle, solved every problem, overcome every obstacle. But he has never understood one simple truth." She placed her hand over Danny's heart, just as she had done on the ship. "Power is not everything. Wealth is not everything. Titles and thrones are dust compared to a single act of true kindness." She took a shaky breath. "You gave me your blood when you had no reason to. You asked for nothing in return. You saved my life because it was the right thing to do. That is worth more than any throne. Danny Cole. That is worth more than the entire empire." Danny saw Captain Bennett and Sophie exchange glances. The other humans were watching with wide eyes. "Are you sure about this?" Danny asked quietly. "Once we leave, you might never be able to come back. I know. You would be giving up everything." Velvet smiled through her tears. "I would be keeping everything that matters." She took his hand and turned toward the shuttle. "Come, let us go home." Danny looked back once as they walked. The crystal towers of Seraphel Prime gleamed in the distance, beautiful and cold. This was Valeth's world, her birthright, her destiny. And she was leaving it all behind. For him, no, he corrected himself. Not for him. For what he represented. For the proof that kindness mattered, that compassion had value. That even a young primitive species could teach the oldest civilization in the galaxy something about what it meant to be good. The shuttle lifted off. And Danny watched Valeth as she looked out the window at her shrinking homeworld. He expected to see sadness, regret, maybe even doubt. Instead, he saw peace. "No regrets?" he asked. Valeth turned to him, and her smile was like sunlight. "None," she said. "Not a single one." And as the stars welcomed them back into the black, Danny realized that somehow, without meaning to, he had found something precious. Not a servant or a burden, but a partner. A friend. Maybe even something more. The second arrival at Seraphel Prime was nothing like the first. This time, there was no delegation waiting. No guards, no advisors, no cold welcome from a disappointed father. This time, the horizon's edge came without invitation, cutting through Etherin space with a message that could not be ignored. They had proof. The captured. Varax had talked before it died. Names, dates, payments. A trail of money and murder that led all the way to the Etherin royal court. And at the end of that trail sat one man, Lord Marasaran, brother of the High Sovereign, uncle of Valeth. He had wanted the throne for his bloodline. Valeth was an obstacle, so he had arranged to have her removed. Captain Bennett sent the evidence ahead. By the time the Horizon's Edge entered orbit, the entire court was in chaos. Accusations flew. Nobles turned on each other. Guards who had been loyal for centuries suddenly found themselves questioning their orders. And High Sovereign Kaelin Soren demanded to see his daughter. The throne room was made of crystal. Light poured through walls that seemed to be made of frozen starlight. Every surface sparkled and gleamed. It was beautiful, and it was cold. Valeth walked through the great doors with Dany at her side. Behind them came Captain Bennett, Sophie Grant, and a dozen Marines from the Horizon's Edge. They were not here as supplicants. They were here as allies. The court watched in silence. Hundreds of Etherin nobles, dressed in their finest robes, their patterns of light flickering with barely contained emotion. They had never seen humans in this sacred place before. They did not know what to think. Kaelin sat on his throne at the far end of the room. He looked older than he had 6 weeks ago, tired. The weight of betrayal showed in every line of his face, and beside him, in chains of glowing energy, stood Lord Mareth. His silver-blue skin was pale with fear. His golden eyes darted around the room, looking for escape, finding none. "Valeth," Kaelin said. His voice echoed through the crystal chamber. "You have returned." "I have, Father." Valeth stopped before the throne and met his gaze without flinching. "I have come to present evidence against Lord Mareth Soren, who stands accused of conspiracy to murder a member of the royal family. The evidence has been reviewed." Kaelin's eyes moved to his brother. There was no love in them, only cold fury. "Lord Mareth has confessed to arranging the attack on your transport ship. He has also confessed to hiring the Varex assassins who attacked you in human space." Mareth fell to his knees. "Brother, please. I was thinking of the Empire. Her bond with the human is an embarrassment. Her blood is contaminated. I was trying to protect our family's honor. You were trying to steal my throne for your children." Kaelin's voice was ice. "You have no honor to protect." He raised his hand, and guards stepped forward. They took Mareth away, his pleas fading as the great doors closed behind him. Then Kaelin turned back to Valeth. "I was wrong." The words fell like stones into still water. The court held its breath. In 6,000 cycles of rule, no one had ever heard the High Sovereign admit a mistake. "I was wrong," Kaelin repeated. "I called you shameful for honoring the Valether. I exiled you for holding to our most sacred traditions. I turned my back on you while true traitors walk these halls." He stood and walked down the steps of his throne, stopping before his daughter. "I am sorry, Valeth. Can you forgive me?" Valeth was quiet for a long moment. Dany could feel her emotions through their bond. Pain, anger, grief, and underneath it all, a love that had never really died. "I forgive you, Father," she said finally. "But I did not come here for forgiveness." "Then why?" Valeth turned to look at Dany. He stepped forward to stand beside her. "I came to offer you something better than an apology," she said. "I came to offer you an alliance." The court murmured. Kaelin's eyes narrowed. "An alliance with humans?" "Yes, with Earth, with the people who saved my life twice, with the species you call primitive, but who showed me more kindness and courage than anyone in this court ever did." Kaelin looked at Dany, really looked at him, perhaps for the first time. "You are the human soldier, the one who gave his blood to my daughter." "Yes, High Sovereign." "And then she gave her blood to you. I can see it in your patterns. You carry ether and light within you now." Dany had not known that was visible, but he nodded. "She saved my life. after you saved hers. Yes. Kalen was silent for a long time. When he spoke again, his voice was thoughtful. Among my people, the Valator is the highest bond two souls can share. It is rare, precious, and sacred. In my 6,000 cycles of life, I have seen it perhaps a dozen times. Always between Etherans. Never between species. He paused. Until now. He looked at his daughter, then at Danny, then at the humans standing behind them. Perhaps I have been blind. Perhaps I have looked down on your species for so long that I forgot what we once were. Young, primitive, struggling to find our place in the stars. A smile touched his lips, small but real. You remind me of us, human. Of what we were before we became so proud and cold. Valeth stepped forward. Then accept the alliance, Father. Recognize humans as equals in the galactic community. Let them stand beside us, not beneath us. And what do they offer in return? Danny answered before anyone else could. Friendship, loyalty, the same things that made me give my blood to save a stranger. We are young, High Sovereign. We do not have your technology, your wisdom, or your power. But we have heart. We care about people, even people who are different from us. And in a galaxy full of species who only think about power and conquest, maybe that is worth something. Kalen studied him for a long moment. Yes, he said finally. Perhaps it is. He raised his voice to address the entire court. Let it be known throughout the Empire. From this day forward, the humans of Earth are friends and allies of the Etheran people. They shall be treated with respect and honor. Any who harm them shall answer to me. The court erupted in noise. Some nobles cheered. Others looked shocked. But none dared disagree. Valeth turned to Danny, her eyes shining. Through their bond, he felt her joy, her relief, her hope. We did it, she whispered. You did it, he corrected. I just came along for the ride. She laughed, and the sound was like music. Later, when the court had emptied and the formalities were complete, Danny and Valeth stood on the balcony of the Crystal Palace. 3 moons hung in the purple sky, casting silver light over the floating cities below. So, Danny said, the Valether is complete. The debt is repaid. I guess that means you are free now. Valeth turned to face him. Yes, the bond of debt is finished. I owe you nothing, and you owe me nothing. Does that mean you are going to leave me alone finally? She smiled. Is that what you want? Danny thought about it. He thought about Montana, about the mountains and the snow and the wide open spaces. He thought about the stars and the endless black. He thought about all the places he had been and all the places he had yet to go. And he thought about facing them alone. No, he said quietly. That is not what I want. Valeth took his hand. Her skin was cool against his, her light patterns pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat. The debt is repaid, she said. But I never said I wished to leave. I stayed at first because I had to. Now I stay because I want to. Because I choose to. She squeezed his hand. If you will have me. Danny looked at her. This alien princess who had given up everything for him, who had followed him across the galaxy, who had saved his life as surely as he had saved hers. Partners? He asked. More than partners. She stepped closer, her golden eyes meeting his. Something new. Something that has never existed before between our species. Something we will have to figure out together. Danny smiled. I think I would like that. She smiled back. So would I. And there, beneath the light of 3 moons, the human soldier and the alien princess began a new chapter. Not bound by obligation, but by choice. Not held together by debt, but by something far stronger. Love. The stars watched, ancient and eternal. And somewhere in their cold light, something new was born. A bridge between worlds. A bond between hearts. A future that neither species could have imagined alone. It started with blood. It continued with courage. And it would last, the historians would later say, for 10,000 years and beyond. But that night, on the balcony of a crystal palace, it was simply two people holding hands and looking at the stars, together. 6 weeks passed, and Valith became part of the crew. It happened slowly, in small moments that added up to something larger. She learned to eat human food, though she made terrible faces at the taste of coffee. She learned the rules of poker and won more games than she lost, much to the frustration of the Marines. She memorized the names of every crew member and asked them about their families, their homes, their dreams. The crew loved her. They called her Princess at first, then just Val. She became their good luck charm. Their proof that not all aliens looked down on humans. And Danny, who had never expected to feel anything more than responsibility for her, found himself looking forward to their conversations. She was wise in ways he had never encountered, and curious about things he had long stopped noticing. She made him see the universe with fresh eyes. One evening, they sat together in the observation deck, watching a nebula drift past the windows. Its colors were soft pink and deep blue, like a bruise in space. "Tell me about Montana," Valith said. Danny smiled. She loved hearing about Earth. "It is big, open. You can ride for hours and never see another person. The mountains touch the sky, and in winter, everything turns white with snow. It sounds beautiful." "It is. It is. Maybe someday I will take you there." Valith turned to look at him. The light from the nebula painted her skin in strange colors. "You would bring an alien to your homeworld?" "I would bring a friend." She smiled at that. A real smile, warm and unguarded. "I would like that very much, Danny Cole." They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Danny asked the question that had been bothering him for weeks. "The attack on your ship. The Vorax raiders. How did they know where you would be?" Valith's expression darkened. "I have wondered the same thing. My travel route was secret. Only a handful of people knew I would be in that sector. So someone told them. Yes, someone wanted me dead." Before Danny could respond, the ship shuddered. Alarms screamed to life. Red lights flashed across the observation deck. "All hands, battle stations." Captain Bennett's voice cut through the chaos. "We are under attack." "Repeat, we are under attack." Danny grabbed Valith's arm. "Stay with me." They ran through the corridors toward the armory. Around them, crew members rushed to their positions. The ship shook again as something hit the hull. "What is happening?" Valith asked. Danny did not have to answer. When they reached the armory, the main screen showed what was outside. 3 Vorax assault ships, cutting through space toward the station where the Horizon's Edge had been resupplying. And they were not alone. Danny counted at least a dozen smaller craft, each one carrying Vorax soldiers. "They found us," Sophie said, appearing at Danny's side. Her face was pale. "But how?" "We are in human space. The Vorax have no reason to be here." "They have a reason," Danny said grimly. "They are finishing what they started." The boarding began minutes later. Vorax soldiers cut through the station's outer hull and poured inside like water through a broken dam. Danny led a team to hold them back, his rifle spitting fire into the massive insectoid bodies. The Vorax were nightmares made real. 7 feet tall, with hard shells that could stop most bullets. 4 arms, each ending in claws sharp enough to cut through armor. And eyes, so many eyes, black and empty and hungry. Danny had faced them before. He knew how to fight them. But there were too many, and they just kept coming. "Fall back," he shouted. "Protect the civilians." The retreat was controlled, but desperate. Danny's team moved through the station, evacuating non-combatants while holding off the Vorax advance. Every corridor became a battlefield. Every room became a tomb. And then Danny saw them. 3 Varak soldiers had broken through the line. They were not attacking randomly like the others. They were moving with purpose, hunting. And their target was clear. Vaelith. She had stayed close to Danny, just as she had promised. But now she was exposed, standing in a corridor with no cover and no weapon. The Varak saw her and charged. Danny did not think. He ran. The first Varax fell with 3 shots to its head. The second stumbled as Danny's bullets tore through its legs. But the third was faster. It swung its blade in a wide arc, and Danny threw himself between the weapon and Vaelith. The blade cut deep into his side. Pain exploded through his body. He felt blood, warm and wet, spreading across his shirt. His legs gave out, and he fell. "Danny!" Vaelith's scream was the last thing he heard clearly. Everything after that came in fragments. Gunfire. Shouting. The sound of Varak's dying. And then Vaelith's face, filling his vision. Her golden eyes were wild with fear. Her patterns of light were pulsing frantically. "No," she was saying. No. You will not die. I will not let you die." Danny tried to speak, but only blood came out. Sophie appeared beside him. Her hands moved over his wound, quick and professional, but her face was grim. "He needs blood. He has lost too much. But we do not have any reserves here. The medical bay is cut off. Then take mine." Sophie looked at Vaelith. "What? My blood? You said our species are compatible. Take my blood and give it to him." "Princess, I do not know if it will work the other way. The reaction could. I do not care." Vaelith was already rolling up her sleeve. "He saved my life with his blood. Now I will save his with mine." "Do it." Danny wanted to protest, but he was too weak. He could only watch as Sophie connected the tubes. As Vaelith's silver-blue blood flowed out of her arm and into his. It felt strange. Warm, but not like normal warmth. It was like liquid light was spreading through his veins. His vision cleared. His strength returned, slowly but surely. Vaelith watched him with fierce concentration, as if she could will him to live through sheer force of hope. "Now we are equal," she whispered. "Now the debt is paid." When Danny opened his eyes fully, the first thing he noticed was that something had changed. Not just in his body, but in his mind. He could feel Vaelith's presence, like a warmth at the edge of his thoughts. Not words, not images, just awareness. She was there, connected to him in a way that had not existed before. She felt it too. He could see it in her eyes. "What is this?" he asked. "The Vaelither," she said softly. "But deeper now. We have shared blood both ways. We are bound together, Danny. Truly bound." The fighting was over by the time Danny could stand. The Voraks had retreated. Their mission failed. Captain Bennett found them in the corridor, surrounded by dead enemies and spent shell casings. "What happened here?" she asked. Danny looked at Vaelith. She looked back at him. Between them, the bond hummed with shared understanding. "She saved my life," Danny said. "As you saved mine," Vaelith added. Bennett studied them both for a long moment. Then she nodded. "We caught one of the Varaks alive," she said. "It talked before it died. These were not random raiders. They were hired. Someone paid them to kill the princess." "Who?" Danny asked, though part of him already knew the answer. "Someone on Serapho Prime. Someone close to the throne." Vaelith's face went cold. "We need to go back." Danny reached out and took her hand. Through the bond, he felt her anger, her determination, and underneath it all, her pain. "Then we go back together," he said. And for the first time, he knew that he would follow her anywhere.